We are back on the Web Insurance Countdown to Kickoff, week number 4 for high school football on 1150 WIMA. Our game tonight is Spencerville and Allen East as we celebrate the Cupid Cups this week featuring the Spencerville Bearcats. Mustangs will be later in the season. Mike Miller is here with me, Jason Aldrich alongside as we get ready for the Stangs and the Bearcats, an old-fashioned NWC rivalry. And Jason will have the call tonight along with Bob Sealshot. And both these teams are 1-2. And Spencerville, I think, a bit of a disappointment to this point in the season. I think we all thought they could be 2-1 or even 3-0. But they've had trouble hanging on to the football. They got to get that straightened out tonight if they want to move to 1-0 in the Northwest Conference.
Also, too, maybe just getting used to maybe some things being done some different ways with Coach Summer coming over. And just having his different ideas, kind of running the same scheme, I believe, that they are used to. So it's not a complete change for them. And I'm actually looking forward to this matchup. This should be an interesting touch-and-go matchup between Allen East and Spencerville tonight.
Of course, that was one of the big off-season stories. Chris Summers comes over from Jefferson to rival Spencerville to take over for John Zerby, who was very successful at Spencerville. His main problem was he couldn't beat Summers and Jefferson, frankly. So an interesting story there. But they do run similar offenses. The main difference is Spencerville is now doing what they've done at Jefferson with Coach Summers. It's that wing T, but it's hurry up. They'll get right to the line of scrimmage. They don't huddle for very long if they huddle at all. So that's been a bit of a change. But when you run that type of offense, you can't turn the ball over. And they unfortunately have been with some regularity. They've got to get that turned around.
Yeah, that's a killer. Turnovers are an absolute, well, they're complexion changers in the middle of a game. And in many respects, they affect outcomes of game. Now, I would look at the schedule for Allen East and give them a little bit of a pass. The fact that they lost the renewal of that opening rivalry with Bath, I don't think is necessarily the end of the world. And then last week over at Traditional Power, Winford over in the Crawford County area, that's no great pox on their house either because Winford has been winning games forever. So I think it's still a season where both clubs are developing, but now with the league contest in that respect, tonight's a pretty big game.
You're right about Winford especially, but the bottom line, Allen East's offense has struggled in all 3 games. Quarterback Bryce Belcher got hurt last week. We're not 100% sure he'll play tonight. We'll find that out as we get to kickoff, but interesting matchup always when Allen East and Spencerville get together.
Right, and we said this before the opening game with respect to Allen East. Who's going to replace Spencer Miller? And so far, they've just found out how much of a factor he really was.
No question about it. So that's our broadcast game tonight. Elsewhere in the Northwest Conference, as they begin conference play, Ada at Jefferson. These are 2 teams we think are contenders. Ada really got thumped by LCC last week, surprising a lot of people. Jefferson has bounced back from a week 1 loss to win a couple of games. So that's a big one tonight at Stadium Park. Crestview, also thought to be one of the contenders in the NWC, will visit Bluffton. Columbus Grove, a disappointing start for them. They will open at Paulding, and that rounds out the NWC slate. Western Buckeye League. Michael will have the call on our sister station, 107.5 WZRX. Wapakoneta hosting Kenton. The Redskins got things back right with the Universe as far as they're concerned with their first win last week, 28-7. They beat Shawnee, and they followed a familiar formula, Mike, and one we thought they could follow to beat Shawnee. They had the physical advantage with their size and strength, and they were able to just kind of grind that game away.
Well, turnovers have been the bugaboo for Wapakoneta also this season, but and short of a crucial punt return fumble or punt reception fumble against a Van Wert, Wapakoneta would be 2-0 in the Western Buckeye League. They're not that far away, and we're really starting to see the coming out of this sophomore by the name of Evan Keck, who's just a very powerful young guy. He's maybe the next great wrestler to come out of Wapakoneta. Picture a 10th grader who's 6 foot, 200 pounds, and he's one of those young guys. He's a man quicker than most of us, so he's a real powerhouse. And their junior quarterback, who's a first-year starter, Brady Erb, starting to find his way. But every time Wapakoneta plays Kenton, it's drop the gloves, let's go. So I'm looking for a hard-fought game tonight.
We'll hear from Coach Moyer later on in the program about that matchup. We'll also hear from Elida coach Bill Speller as Elida hosts Defiance tonight. They'll be huge favorites against Defiance, who's struggling again. But that was the game of the year maybe last week when Elida drove for a field goal as time expired to win at Salina. Really could be a season-defining win.
I think so, because it sets them up. All due respect to Defiance, nobody thinks they're going to upset Elida tonight. And then the Auglaize County March for Elida next week at Wapakoneta at St. Mary's. So big for Elida around the corner. That's where we're looking ahead for those guys, and it's going to be huge.
And both of those games will be heard here on our stations in the coming weeks. Wapak next week on 107.5 WZRX. Elida at St. Mary's in 2 weeks right here on 1150 WIMA. Also tonight in the WBL, Bath is home for Salina OG at Van Wert and Shawnee at St. Mary's. Mike, you got an up-close look at the Indians last week for the first time in person. Obviously, they have big playability, but otherwise, how do you rate Shawnee's chances to stay toward the top of the WBL?
Well, they need to stay healthy, quite frankly. One of their offensive tackles apparently didn't play against Wapakoneta last Friday night, so Wapakoneta just chewed them up on the line. I like their playmakers, though. They got a couple of good backs who can catch the ball, and they've got some receivers. They're not afraid to go deep. The quarterback, Caprella, is a true dual threat with a big arm, that sort of thing. So their big play capability remains, but they got to stay healthy, because once you start to show some weaknesses along the line, especially the offensive line, other teams are going to eat you for lunch. So that's my biggest concern with Shawnee, is their depth moving forward.
And they will be at St. Mary's tonight. Of course, last week it was Marion Local and Coldwater. Marion Local pulled out the 13-7 win. Now they have another test as they host Minster tonight, a pair of 3-0 teams. That is the highlight game in the Midwest Athletic Conference. Delphus St. John's will play tomorrow against Versailles. And Lima Senior opens track play tonight at Toledo Central Catholic. The Irish have won 21 in a row in the regular season. Spartans almost upset Toledo Central Catholic last year in the season finale. Would have put the Spartans in the playoffs, a real devastating loss. They almost beat the Irish this year.
Have they ever beaten Toledo Central Catholic in football? I don't think so.
Not in track.
Not in track play. They certainly haven't.
Right.
They think they have a chance tonight up there at Toledo Central Catholic, but the Irish are really tough. Spartans' defense got pushed around last week. That's going to be the formula for beating them, I think. Other teams are going to try to emulate.
So you're saying the Spartans' 19-17 win over, or loss to Springfield, unless you didn't hear the game, wasn't indicative that game wasn't maybe quite as close as that 2-point score?
Yeah, Spartans struggled to move the football. Springfield in the second half really shoved it down their throat. But the Spartan defense was very opportunistic. They stripped the ball on a number of occasions. Inexplicably, Springfield threw one time after they were dominating with the run game. Spartans intercepted it. So they have shown a penchant to be able to take the ball away, but when it came to just straight defending that power run, Springfield dominated them with a huge offensive line and some talented backs.
And Jason, you know Toledo pretty well. The Spartans with Central Catholic and then Whitmer, that's a murderer's row for them right out of the gate, right?
Yeah, we're St. Francis when you need them.
Well, Spartans and St. Francis will have them on WIMA later this year.
There you
and
go.
Next week, Whitmer Senior High will be heard here on WIMA. And, of course, tonight, Lima Seniors at Central Catholic. And how about LCC? Talked about their big win last week over Ada. All of a sudden, the T-Birds, you might think maybe they're a playoff-type team. They're up at Toledo Waite tonight. And I cannot place Waite in my head about how good they ever are. I don't think they're a very powerful program.
That'd be the Waite Indians?
That is correct. And in my heyday, our basketball team at Gibsonburg would have their districts at Waite High School, right around the corner from the old Toledo Sports Arena.
At the field house.
Good luck to the T-Birds against the Waite Indians.
Who was the
tonight.
team? I mean, the T-Birds, that wasn't, it was St. John's who got them. That was
St.
their
John's
loss.
beat
So
them.
they lost in a rivalry game, but a tremendous bounce back. And I think Scott Pauley is pretty high on his team otherwise.
No doubt.
Okay.
So good luck to the T-Birds tonight. Our game tonight is Allen East and Spencerville. We'll take a break and welcome in Jason Geiser from your hometown stations to talk high school football next as the Web Insurance Countdown to Kickoff continues on 1150 WIMA.